Fish and I, of course, will be on the call tonight for the USC men's basketball game. Come home from Arizona after 2 losses. Chris, another tough road trip. Where do the Trojans stand with 6 games to go in the regular season?
Yeah, it was a frustrating trip to Arizona, no doubt about it. They came into that game against Arizona State last Friday expecting to win, thinking that was going to be the easier leg of the trip. It did not happen. They fell behind Arizona by 16 points, couldn't come back in that second half, just came up a little bit short. And so now things start to get a little more interesting in conference play because they slip back after those 2 losses, and they're in 5th place, just outside of the top 4, which would give them a first-round bye in the Pac-12 tournament, which is obviously the goal. But they played so much better here at home, which is a big-time advantage. The entire conference has played better at home, but they've got a huge series coming up. Colorado and Utah, both teams ahead of them in the Pac-12 standings.
Well, we wanted to get a national perspective on the Trojans, who have become something of a national story this year. So we're calling in Andy Katz, as the game is on ESPN tonight. He's a senior college basketball writer, of course, for ESPN. Everyone knows Andy's work. Game on ESPNU and, of course, ESPN LA 710. Andy, can you hear me back there?
I got you.
First one for you, Andy. Are the Trojans on schedule, ahead of schedule, or behind schedule in year 3 under another Andy Enfield?
I would say that they are right on schedule. I think that, if anything, you could argue that, he wasn't given the right amount of patience that he should have been given, which is you're taking over a program that obviously has been through some pretty chaotic times. And, he needed time to put his imprint on the program. And it just feels like, 3 years in that that has occurred. It also, I think it's safe to say that the timing is perfect because, this is a year where there were a lot of defections to the NBA, whether it's seniors or early entrants. And so there was ample, space, if you will, to move up within the conference. And for USC to be 7-5, 12 games into the Pac-12 and 18-7 overall, and essentially, been able to play with or beat every team in the league, despite this last trip to the Arizonas, I think just shows how far the program has come under Enfield, and the fact that he's now put them on a path to getting a bid.
Andy, 7-5 in the Pac-12 seems to be a good number because the Pac-12 is deep. The numbers suggest that. What's your stance on the Pac-12 and the teams that are really contending to make the NCAA tournament?
Well, all records are not created equal, especially in these unbalanced leagues.
Yep.
In terms of scheduling. So, for example, I was looking at Ohio State yesterday. They picked up their 9th Big Ten win, but actually, so 9-5 in the Big Ten. Oh, that sounds great. But then you look at it, and then 8 of the 9 Big Ten wins came against teams that aren't going to be in the field. So they were feasting on the bottom, and they finally got one last night against Michigan. Now, conversely, if you look at USC's, 7 wins so far, they've got the one over Arizona, which is going to have tremendous shelf life. They've got the sweep of UCLA, not always an indicator that you can always get in ahead of a team. Because we saw that before. I remember a few years ago when Arizona State actually swept Arizona and didn't get in. And winning the league doesn't always necessarily mean you're getting into that. And Washington one year where they won the league. But in terms of teams that are likely or could get into the field, win over Arizona. You've got a win over Washington if they get in, 2 over UCLA. So those matter. And then if you look at the non-conference, Yale, 12-point victory over Yale. That's a team that right now more than likely is going to win the Ivy.
Yep.
That's a team that's in the field. Quality win. The fact that they beat Wichita State, even though Wichita State was not full at the time, team that will be in the field, quality win. Monmouth. Yeah, they split with Monmouth, but they got one of the wins.
Everybody loves Monmouth this year.
But another win against the field. And so all these things add up as sort of chips for USC. And then if you look at their remaining schedule, they have games against, obviously Colorado tonight, Utah this weekend. Stanford and Cal obviously are still trying to play themselves in, but they're sort of, more than capable teams, and the 2 Oregons to end the season. So all their games remaining are against teams that either are going to be in the field or are trying to get in the field. And so they're all great opportunities and enough, I think, to get USC in and a pretty solid seed.
You're listening to Andy Katz on Trojans Live with Jordan Moore and Chris Fisher. And Andy, the first part is, why can't anybody win in the on the road in the Pac-12? And the second one is, how hard is it for the committee to judge all these teams that win every game at home, can't win on the road, and the tournament is played at a neutral site? I mean, it seems like it would be very difficult to figure out. USC is a little bit that way. Cal is really that way. Colorado's that way. I mean, it seems like it's going to be difficult to assess teams that are just struggling so much on the road as they are here in the Pac-12.
And that's why, like, a neutral court win against Wichita back in November will, matter.
Yeah.
I'm looking at their schedule. It's probably the best away from home victory at the time. I mean, it's going to be hard to define these teams based on their road wins because they don't have many of them. But it also shows that the strength of this league at home, and this has always been a very good home court league because it's played on campus sites in every arena. So that has great value. I mean, there are a lot of leagues, at least the old Big East used to be like that, where there's a lot of pro arenas. You didn't have the same kind of home court power. I think if anything, it doesn't prevent them from getting a bid. It might hurt their seeding if you were to compare them against another team that's got, solid wins away from home. That might give them an edge in terms of seeding. But I don't think it'll matter in selection.
Andy Katz of ESPN joining us. And Andy, this USC team is got a little more talent this year. Who on this current roster might have the most NBA talent, according to you?
Well, I'm not a scout, so, I wouldn't want anyone to take my opinion like that to the bank. But first of all, I would never dismiss anyone who is foreign, okay, because Nicola's obviously he's going to make money somewhere.
Yeah.
And whether or not he gets drafted or where he gets drafted, I don't know. But obviously he's had moments, and he had the 28 against Washington or 25 against ASU. I mean, he's proven that he can be very productive. Jacobs has already had, obviously had a very good year. So I don't know. They've clearly always had NBA-level talent come through there in various stretches. So I wouldn't be surprised if one or two of these guys, is making substantial money at some point somewhere on the globe.
All right, Andy Katz, we appreciate you joining us as we get ready for the broadcast tonight. USC and Colorado at the Galen Center. Tip time in just under an hour. You can listen on ESPN LA 710 or watch it on TV and ESPNU, and obviously watch Andy as he gets ready for March Madness. He'll have all the coverage on ESPN. Thank you for joining us, Andy Katz. When we come back, we're going to switch, talk a little USC baseball. But first, Trojans Live is brought to you by your Southern California BMW Centers, exclusive partner of the SoCal BMW Crosstown Cup. For a limited time, take advantage of 0.9% APR in all 2011, 2012, and 2013 certified pre-owned BMW models. Details at SoCalBMW.com. Dan Hubbs, the head coach of USC Baseball, next on Trojans Live.